Mrs. Dorothy Williams had been working at Lincoln High School for 15 years. Every morning at 5 a.m., she would arrive at the empty cafeteria and begin preparing meals for over 800 students. Her weathered hands moved with practiced precision as she chopped vegetables, stirred massive pots of soup, and arranged hundreds of lunch trays. The other staff members often wondered how she managed to stay so cheerful despite the demanding work and modest pay. Dorothy was known for her warm smile and kind words. She remembered every student's name and their favorite foods. When Marcus Johnson, a shy sophomore, forgot his lunch money for the third time that week, Dorothy quietly slipped him a sandwich and a juice box. When Sarah Chen looked upset after failing a math test, Dorothy offered her an extra cookie and a gentle pat on the shoulder. These small acts of kindness went mostly unnoticed by the school administration, but the students never forgot them. The other cafeteria workers respected Dorothy deeply. Maria Santos, who had worked alongside her for 10 years, often said that Dorothy was the heart and soul of their team. Even when the kitchen equipment broke down or when they were short-staffed, Dorothy never complained. She simply rolled up her sleeves and found a way to make things work. Her positive attitude was infectious, and she had a gift for turning even the most stressful days into manageable ones. But Dorothy carried a secret that none of her colleagues knew about. Every evening after her shift ended, she would drive to the local community college where she attended advanced mathematics classes. For the past 5 years, she had been quietly working toward a degree in applied mathematics. Her professors were amazed by her natural ability to solve complex problems and her dedication to learning. Dorothy had always been brilliant with numbers, but life circumstances had prevented her from pursuing higher education when she was younger. The irony was not lost on her that during the day, she served food to students who barely acknowledged her existence, while at night, she studied alongside people half her age who respected her intellect. Her classmates knew her as Dorothy, the brilliant student who could solve calculus problems. That stumped everyone else. But at school, she was simply the lunch lady who smiled and served their meals without complaint. Dorothy had a dream that kept her motivated through the long days and late nights of studying. She wanted to become a mathematics teacher and show young people that learning could be exciting and accessible. She believed that everyone had the potential to succeed if given the right encouragement and support. This belief had sustained her through years of financial struggle and personal challenges, including raising 3 children as a single mother, while working multiple jobs to make ends meet. The trouble began on a rainy Tuesday morning in October. A group of senior students had gathered near the serving line, waiting for the cafeteria to open. Jake Morrison, the star quarterback, was holding court with his usual crowd of followers. These were the popular kids who thought they ruled the school, the ones who drove expensive cars and wore designer clothes that cost more than Dorothy made in a month. "Look at her," Jake said loudly, pointing at Dorothy as she arranged fresh fruit in the serving containers. "Same ugly uniform every day. I bet she can't even count past 10 without using her fingers." His friends erupted in cruel laughter. Brittany Walsh, the head cheerleader, joined in with her own nasty comment about Dorothy's appearance. The group seemed to feed off each other's meanness, each trying to say something more cutting than the last. Dorothy heard every word, but she continued working with dignity. She had dealt with thoughtless comments before, though rarely this openly cruel. The hurt was evident in her eyes for just a moment before she composed herself and continued serving breakfast with the same gentle smile she always wore. Several younger students witnessed the scene and felt uncomfortable, but none of them had the courage to speak up against the popular seniors. The harassment continued throughout the week. Every time the group encountered Dorothy, they would make loud, mocking comments about her intelligence, her appearance, or her job. They seemed to think it was hilarious to pick on someone they saw as an easy target. Other students began to notice the pattern of bullying, and while some felt it was wrong, peer pressure kept most of them silent. Mr. Peterson, the math teacher, overheard one of these incidents while walking through the cafeteria. He was disgusted by the students' behavior, but school policy required him to handle such matters through proper channels rather than confronting the students directly. He made a mental note to speak with the principal about the situation. However, he had no idea that Dorothy was actually one of the most talented mathematics students he had ever encountered. even though they had never met in an academic setting. The situation reached a breaking point on Friday afternoon. Jake and his friends were particularly cruel that day, making elaborate jokes about Dorothy's intelligence while she cleaned tables nearby. They spoke loudly enough for half the cafeteria to hear, clearly enjoying the attention their performance was getting from other students. What they didn't realize was that their behavior was about to backfire in a spectacular way. Dr. Rebecca Chen, the school principal, happened to be walking through the cafeteria during lunch period when she witnessed the latest round of harassment. She was appalled by what she saw and heard. Dr. Chen had always prided herself on running a school where respect and kindness were valued above all else. She knew she had to address this situation immediately, but she also knew that simply punishing the students wouldn't teach them the lesson they truly needed to learn. Dr. Chen had been following the development of a special mathematics competition that the school board was promoting throughout the district. The competition was designed to challenge even the brightest students, with problems that required advanced calculus and analytical thinking skills. The winning school would receive a substantial grant for their mathematics program, and individual winners would earn college scholarships worth thousands of dollars. The principal had been looking for ways to generate interest in the competition among the student body. Most teachers felt that the problems would be too difficult for high school students, and even the advanced placement students seemed intimidated by the sample questions that had been distributed. The competition required participants to solve complex real-world problems using advanced mathematical concepts that went well beyond the standard curriculum. That afternoon, Dr. Chen made an announcement over the school's public address system. She explained that the school would be participating in the regional mathematics competition, and that any student who was interested could pick up registration materials from the main office. She also mentioned that there would be a public demonstration the following Monday, where sample problems would be presented and solved in front of the entire student body during an extended lunch period. The announcement generated mixed reactions among the students. The academically minded students were curious but nervous about the difficulty level. The popular crowd, led by Jake Morrison, saw it as another opportunity to mock students they considered nerds. Jake loudly proclaimed that he could probably solve the problems himself, despite having barely maintained a C average in his regular mathematics classes. What the students didn't know was that Dr. Chen had already spoken privately with Dorothy about the competition. The principal had discovered Dorothy's academic background through a chance conversation with Professor Williams from the community college, who had mentioned having an exceptional student who worked at the local high school. When Dr. Chen realized they were talking about her own cafeteria worker, she was both amazed and inspired. Dorothy was initially hesitant when Dr. Chen approached her about participating in the demonstration. She was afraid that her involvement might make the harassment from Jake's group even worse. However, Dr. Chen convinced her that this could be an opportunity to show the entire school community the importance of treating everyone with respect, regardless of their job title or appearance. The principal's plan was elegant in its simplicity. She would present the sample problems to the assembled students and ask for volunteers to attempt solutions. When the advanced students inevitably struggled with the complex equations, she would ask Dorothy to step forward and demonstrate how the problems should be approached. Dr. Chen hoped that this would not only shame the bullies but also inspire other students to look beyond surface appearances and recognize the value in every person. Monday arrived with an atmosphere of anticipation and skepticism. The cafeteria had been transformed into an impromptu auditorium, with students packed around tables and standing along the walls. Dr. Chen stood at the front with a large whiteboard that had been wheeled in for the occasion. The mathematics department faculty sat nearby, looking doubtful about whether any student would be able to tackle the challenging problems. The first problem involved calculating the optimal distribution of resources across multiple variables, with changing constraints over time. Dr. Chen wrote the complex equation on the board, complete with calculus notation and statistical modeling requirements. A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd as students realized this was far beyond anything they had encountered in their regular classes. Jake Morrison couldn't resist making another loud comment about how even the lunch lady could probably solve it better than the smart kids. His friends laughed on cue, and several other students shifted uncomfortably at the mean-spirited joke. Dorothy, who was standing quietly at the back of the room, felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment but remained composed. Dr. Chen asked for volunteers to attempt the problem. After several minutes of awkward silence, she called on Tommy Chen, the valedictorian and captain of the academic decathlon team. Tommy approached the board confidently but quickly found himself overwhelmed by the complexity of the multi-layered problem. He managed to identify the basic structure, but struggled with the integration required to find the solution. Next, Jennifer Walsh, who was taking AP Calculus, tried her hand at the problem. She made more progress than Tommy, but got stuck when the equation required knowledge of advanced statistical methods that weren't taught at the high school level. The room grew quiet as it became clear that even the school's brightest students were out of their depth. Jake Morrison, feeling pressured to back up his earlier boasting, swaggered to the front of the room. He stared at the board for a long moment, clearly having no idea where to begin. After writing a few basic algebra steps that were completely irrelevant to the actual problem, he gave up with a nervous laugh and claimed the problem was designed to be impossible for high school students. The moment Dr. Chen had been waiting for had arrived. She looked across the room and made eye contact with Dorothy, who was still standing quietly at the back. With a gentle smile, the principal asked if anyone else would like to try. When no one volunteered, she directly addressed Dorothy and asked if she would be willing to take a look at the problem. The request seemed to come out of nowhere, and students began whispering among themselves about why the principal was asking the cafeteria worker to attempt an advanced mathematics problem. Dorothy walked slowly to the front of the room, her heart pounding as hundreds of eyes followed her movement. The whispers grew louder as students wondered what was happening. Jake Morrison was smirking, clearly expecting to witness another humiliation that he could use for future jokes. His friends were already preparing their next round of cruel comments. When Dorothy reached the whiteboard, she studied the problem carefully for about 30 seconds. Then, to everyone's amazement, she picked up a marker and began writing with smooth, confident strokes. Her approach was methodical and elegant, breaking down the complex problem into manageable components that built logically upon each other. The room fell completely silent as Dorothy worked through the integration, applying advanced calculus techniques with the ease of someone who had mastered the subject years ago. She explained each step clearly as she wrote, her voice gaining strength and confidence as she progressed. Her mathematical reasoning was flawless, and she demonstrated connections between different areas of mathematics that even the faculty hadn't immediately recognized. Jake Morrison's smirk faded as he realized what was happening. His face went pale, and he seemed to shrink into himself as the full impact of the situation became clear. The woman he had been mocking and insulting was solving a problem that had completely stumped him and every other student in the school, including those he had always considered to be the real intellectuals. As Dorothy completed the solution, she turned to face the stunned audience. She briefly explained the real-world applications of the problem, describing how similar calculations were used in engineering, economics, and scientific research. Her explanation was clear and accessible, showing not just her mathematical ability, but also her natural teaching skills. Dr. Chen stepped forward and announced that Dorothy Williams had been attending the community college for the past 5 years, maintaining a perfect grade point average in advanced mathematics courses while working full-time at the school. She was currently completing her degree and planned to become a mathematics teacher. The revelation hit the room like a thunderbolt. The silence that followed was deafening. Students who had witnessed the harassment looked ashamed, while others stared at Dorothy with newfound respect and admiration. Jake Morrison looked like he wanted to disappear entirely, finally understanding the magnitude of his cruel behavior. He had not only been bullying an innocent person, but he had been mocking someone whose intellectual abilities far exceeded his own. Dorothy addressed the room with grace and dignity that seemed impossible given how she had been treated. She spoke about the importance of education and encouraged students to pursue their dreams regardless of obstacles. She reminded them that everyone deserves respect, regardless of their job or appearance, and that assumptions about people's abilities are often completely wrong. The transformation at Lincoln High School was immediate and profound. Jake Morrison approached Dorothy privately the next day, his usual arrogance replaced by genuine shame and remorse. He offered a heartfelt apology for his behavior and asked if there was anything he could do to make amends. Dorothy accepted his apology with characteristic grace and suggested that he could help by treating all school staff members with the respect they deserved. The story of Dorothy's mathematical brilliance spread quickly throughout the school and the wider community. Local newspapers picked up the story, and Dorothy found herself becoming a symbol of hidden potential and the importance of education. The community college where she studied invited her to speak at their graduation ceremony, and several universities reached out with offers of full scholarships to complete her teaching degree. Jake Morrison underwent a complete change in attitude and behavior. He began volunteering in the cafeteria, helping Dorothy and her colleagues during busy lunch periods. He also started a tutoring program where struggling students could get help with their mathematics homework. His transformation was so complete that other students barely recognized the person he had become. The mathematics competition became a rallying point for the entire school. Dorothy agreed to coach interested students, and her teaching methods proved to be incredibly effective. Students who had previously struggled with basic algebra began tackling advanced problems under her guidance. The school's team performed exceptionally well in the regional competition, earning recognition and scholarship money for several participants. Dorothy completed her degree the following spring and was immediately hired by the school district as a mathematics teacher. Her first assignment was at Lincoln High School, where she became one of the most beloved and respected educators on the faculty. Her unique background allowed her to connect with students who felt overlooked or underestimated, and her classroom became a place where everyone felt valued and capable of success. Years later, Jake Morrison would often speak about how Dorothy changed his life by teaching him one of the most important lessons he ever learned. He went on to become a successful businessman who was known for treating all employees with respect and dignity, regardless of their position in the company. He frequently credited Dorothy with showing him that true worth comes from character and kindness, not from social status or appearance. The incident became part of Lincoln High School's culture and history, passed down from one class to the next as a reminder about the danger of making assumptions about people. Dorothy's story inspired countless students to pursue education and to treat everyone they met with respect and consideration. Her legacy extended far beyond mathematics, touching the lives of everyone who heard her remarkable story of perseverance, dignity, and ultimate triumph over prejudice and ignorance.